I have to tell you this, that I had one of the smoothest pregnancies that you will ever hear of. I had no mood swings. I worked until the last day of my pregnancy. I did prenatal yoga throughout my pregnancy. So I thought that labor is also going to be manageable because I had all the tools that I could have. But boy, do I have a story to tell you. So this is my birth story. This video is going to be very different. It's heart to heart. So let me just start telling you what really happened on D-Day.
My name is Gurpreet Kaur Sanyal and welcome to Momentum Women, where we support you in your fertility, prenatal and postpartum journey.
This video is part 1, wherein I will share my experience of labor, and part 2 will have the experience of after I delivered the baby. And once you watch these 2 parts, you will know why I created 2 parts. So let me just start with the entire story. It was the last day of my pregnancy. Of course, I did not know that it was my last day, but I was still working. So at 2 p.m., I think, my mucus plug came out. And I did not get scared. I just clicked a picture of the mucus plug and sent it to the doctor. So the doctor then, of course, told me that it's just very less time that you have in hand and you might just deliver the baby anytime. So I was okay. I already had this information about mucus plug and that normally it would take 2 to 3 days. So I started working again. I worked until like 6:30 p.m. that day. And at night, I don't know why, but I decided to sit on my exercising ball. And I thought, let me do some hip rolls. And while I started doing the hip rolls, suddenly I could feel the water gushing out. It was like it happens in movies. It was just like... So the water came out. For a split second, I did not understand what's really happening. But then I immediately realized that, oh, my water broke. So I informed my mother-in-law. I rushed to her and I told her that this is what's happened. And at that time, my husband had gone out to get the necessary things that we need, the last tidbits that we need for the hospital bag. And within, I think, 1 or 2 minutes, he entered from the main door and I told him. And he was immediately, of course, nervous. But then he looked at me and he thought that, okay, she's smiling. Nothing really major is happening. So I guess I can be okay. I was literally smiling because there was no pain that I got. I was just leaking. I immediately called my doctor because I had a sensation to poop, to defecate. So I know that when the baby is ready to come out, you feel that you're about to defecate. So I didn't want to take a chance, but I still called my doctor. So my doctor advised to immediately rush to the hospital. And that's what we did. We immediately rushed to the hospital and they admitted me in the emergency room. They started with all the tests there could be. And there was this one doctor, I still remember, she was so nasty. She had one of the nastiest tones I've ever heard. Like she was so disinterested in helping me. Perhaps I ruined her night by reaching there at like 9:30 or 10. So she asked me in a very bad tone, would you like to go for a normal delivery? That was the plan. I said yes. She asked me n number of different questions and I just couldn't understand why was she really mean to me. But that was okay. That was still okay. They did whatever procedure that they could. They gave me an enema. They asked me to sit on a wheelchair, but I was like, I'm fine. I mean, I can walk because there was no pain. I was given a tablet to induce pain in me because the water was already leaking. If I did not induce pain, then there could be consequences, severe consequences, which I will list in the description box. I was aware of that there could be consequences. So but still, I remember I spoke to my doctor before I had that medicine. They gave me the medicine, and I was okay. I was still okay. I think they gave it to me at about 10 p.m. Yeah. And at 2 a.m., they came again to give me the medicine, but still there was no pain. The first pain, the labor pain I felt was around at 4 a.m., around that time. So, but it was very light. It was the kind of pain I used to get during my periods before I did the post graduation in yogic science. So it was manageable. And then I slept. And then I slept until 6:30 a.m. And I could feel a little bit of pain. I was able to manage it. My husband was running everywhere to get the documentation sorted out. My doctor was yet to see me. The nurse came again and gave me another tablet. That was a ride, anyhow. So at 8 a.m., I saw my doctor, and my doctor said that you've not dilated yet, but I'm thinking that you will now get the pain and you will dilate. And I told her, well, I already got the pain. It seems like I have a good capacity to bear pain. And my husband was also so confident, and he said, yeah, I think that she's got good capacity. I vouch for that. She's been managing really well. And then my doctor looked at us and she said, yeah, the pain will come. Wait for that. So at about 10 a.m., the pain started. The real pain started, the labor pain. And it was intense because it was not natural. It was a medically induced pain. So it was really intense for my body to handle. But I had my affirmations, my tools, I told you. I had my affirmations that I recorded for that day. I started listening to them. Then I switched between chants too. I started listening to chants. So everything was according to the plan. The contractions were 5 minutes apart. And in between, because I was so tired, I think I slept for some time in between too. And then I used to wake up with pain. I used to then sleep for about 1 or 2 minutes, dream about something, and then wake up again with the pain. I started monitoring my contractions too in between. So a lot was happening. My husband was by my side, but he had to run a lot for the documentation. It was just the both of us there at the hospital at that time. But then the pain started becoming more intense. I begged the nurses to check if I'm dilated enough for an epidural. And they at that time told me that if we check again and again, then there's a risk of infection. I did not quite understand at that point in time what infection were they talking about. The only infection that I could relate it to was UTI. And I was ready to get a UTI, that's okay. So I requested them again to check. But around 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m., I was still dilated 4 inches. And the pain was too much. Too much. My doctor, she approved the epidural for me. I got the epidural at 1:30 p.m. And it was a little better. I could breathe. I could feel the pain and still be okay. So it was around 60% of what I was feeling earlier. At around 2, I was transferred to the delivery room, and they were monitoring the heartbeat. They were monitoring everything, my stats, the baby's stats. Everything was fine. So at around 2, I think I also asked if I could have some coconut water. I had some coconut water and I slept again. I understand that I slept through this labor a lot. But it was required. So I slept again. So I told my husband to go take some rest because he was also awake, tired, and he needed that energy too. So he went to the room and I was sleeping in the delivery room. I woke up with pain at about 3 p.m. The epidural wore off. It was not doing its magic like I was promised. And then they gave me a little more dose at around 3:30 p.m. And still, that also stayed for half an hour more. But so from there, everything went downhill. The baby's heartbeat suddenly dropped, and I was not leaking any more amniotic fluid. All this while, I was just leaking. But the baby's heartbeat dropped, and everyone rushed into the room. They put me on oxygen, and that's when my husband entered the room, and he was shocked because I told him to go take some rest, and someone would call him if there would be any development, but no one called him. So he was shocked, and then he got an update that the baby's heartbeat is dropping. So because I was put on oxygen, I guess the baby's heartbeat stabilized, whatever that the doctors did, whatever that the nurses did. So then it became a little traumatic for everyone. The baby didn't descend, and the baby's heartbeat was a little vulnerable and volatile at this point of time. My husband was standing on the right side and a nurse was standing on the left side. And they were helping me push the baby out until 5 p.m. I was only dilated 8 inches. That's when my doctor suggested that we should go for a C-section. And at that point of time, I got the shock of my life because I was not prepared for that. I conceived easily. I had a smooth pregnancy. I I went to the hospital and I'd been walking around. I was very comfortable. So I did not expect this to happen. So I asked the doctor if I had some more time to push. And she said, yes, I can give you some more time, just half an hour more if you want, but then consider the option. And that's when it happened. I asked my husband to to support me with one thigh, which is my right thigh. He pulled one thigh. The nurse on the left hand side pulled the left thigh, and I pushed. I pushed with each contraction. I could feel every contraction, all the pain that there could be, because the pain was also intensified. The epidural was not working. So I really pushed. There was a lot to see, I think, on the table that I, of course, did not see. People witnessed, but I did not give up. But at 5:45, again, my baby's heartbeat dropped. And that's when my husband was like, listen, I think you should go for a C-section. So my doctor also told me, consider the option of C-section now, because if the baby descends a little more, then we wouldn't be able to do the C-section, neither will the baby come out. And at that point of time, instantly I thought, I just cannot go home without a baby. This is not about me anymore. I have to look at my baby's health and my health. If I try any more, then I might just put both our lives at risk. So I just immediately at 5:45, I said, okay, yes, let's do this. So they took me to the OT and they started preparing for the C-section. And all I was doing was crying. Crying because of a lot of things. I was tired, I was frustrated, I was in pain. I was literally high on pain because I started saying things that I normally would not. I was on the table and because I was crying so much, I was thirsty. So I asked for water. They said that they could not give me water, but then they gave me this medical water, a little bit, so that my throat is not dry. But I started crying because I thought that in some time Sorry. I think I feel better now. Okay. So, normally I would not say things that I said at that table. Uh, and I was embarrassed. I can't even say those things right now because I would be so embarrassed. The next day, of course, I apologized to the doctor and to the nurses, and no, it wasn't something bad. It was just like, I don't have parents, you don't understand, and oh, I'm gonna see my baby, and this and that. I was too emotional. Um, then I heard the cry. I asked them that is it a boy or a girl? And I don't know why they did not tell me. They said we'll show it to you. I said okay. So she comes with the baby and she puts the baby's body right in front of my eyes and she says, "What is it?" And I was already high on pain. I was crying. I couldn't understand. I couldn't focus, but I had to focus like it was an examination. And I said, "Well, it's a boy. It's a boy." And she said, "Yes." And then she put the baby's face right next to me, my face, and then I kissed the baby and she took the baby away. And then I think I fainted for some time. The next time I opened my eyes, I was on the table and somebody was drawing blood from my vein. But I didn't get shocked. I asked him that, "Are you from the stem cells company?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, "Okay." And then I fainted again. So just for a minute or two, I guess, because I remember they covered me up and they shifted me to another room. My body was still very numb. They shifted me to another room, and I kept waiting for my husband there. I told them, "Can you send my husband?" And they said, "Yeah, sure." So I kept waiting. I think it was like 10 minutes or so. Then he came, and he had these teary eyes. He was so strong, vulnerable. He was everything. He was the universe at that point of time. He had witnessed so much. And to witness someone and you're not able to help that person. That person's very close to you, but you're able to witness whatever that they go through, but you can't do anything. Is it different? Not pain, but it's a different struggle altogether. So he'd been through that. So I looked at him and he looked at me. I think we fell in love with each other all over again. So that was my birth story. Now I'll tell you why the baby didn't descend. Because the amniotic fluid had ended. So the baby couldn't descend. And another thing that happened with my baby was that the chin was a little up, so his head was not in the position of the birth canal. It was his forehead was facing the birth canal, so he could not descend. Another thing what had happened with the baby was that he pooped inside the womb, but thank God he did not eat any, and they did all the necessary tests immediately. Another thing that I missed telling you guys, an important thing that I missed telling you, which might be helpful for you if you facing the same thing, is that my back hurt a lot. I just complained a lot that my back hurt during the entire labor. There was pain, there was labor pain, but I had back pain, and that was not normal for me. So I told them this, and then they realized that the back of the baby was against my back, as in on the spine. So on my spine. So that is another reason that uh, the baby couldn't descend. So that was my story. Thank you so much for listening. I've created a second part because this part is really long, and the consequences of 21 hours of prolonged labor will be discussed in part 2. The consequences were not more for me, the consequences were for my baby. Of course, for the parents too, because we had to suffer looking at the baby. Thankfully, everything is fine, everything is okay. But I will discuss the first 40 days after delivery, how they were in the next part. So stay tuned, it might just help you with your delivery too. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.